I stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of the corner office, the highest point of the tallest building downtown. The skyline glistened beneath a golden sunset, but my eyes were fixed on one thing: the parking lot below, specifically, the reserved spot that used to belong to my former boss. Funny, isn't it? 3 years ago, I was just another middle manager juggling meetings, deadlines, and growing life inside me. And today, I run the company that once called me a liability. I still remember the day they fired me like it happened this morning. I was 7 months pregnant, exhausted, hopeful, and naive enough to believe that a company that called itself a family would actually stand by one. Instead, they called me into a Zoom meeting, smiled politely, and terminated me citing performance concerns. They stripped away my title, my paycheck, and my dignity at the moment I needed stability the most. I cried for days, but I didn't stay broken. I transformed, and I built something better, not just for me but for every woman who has ever been pushed out for daring to become a mother. Now I walk these hallways with purpose. My name is etched on the glass door that leads to the executive suite. CEO Madison Claire, and guess who just sent in her RSUM? The same HR director who fired me. This isn't just a story about revenge. It's a story about reclaiming your power. And it starts with betrayal. 3 years ago, I was a loyal project manager at Ferntech Solutions, a mid-sized software company nestled in the heart of a quiet tech park. We weren't flashy or groundbreaking, but we were stable, reliable. We had clients who paid on time, managers who remembered birthdays, and quarterly team lunches that made you feel like you were part of something more than just a job. They called it a work family. I'd been with them for almost 5 years. I wasn't just another cog in the machine, I was the person who made things move. I handled our biggest clients, fixed problems before they became headlines, and mentored the new hires like they were my own little tribe. I had a reputation. When things went wrong, they called me. When something needed leadership, they looked to me. I had earned their trust. But behind all the respect, I also felt the quiet pressure of being a woman in leadership, especially one who hadn't started a family yet. So when I found out I was pregnant, I was elated and terrified. Josh, my husband, and I had been trying for months. And when that tiny plus sign appeared on the test one rainy Sunday morning, I felt my entire world shift. I cried not because I was scared, but because I felt complete. At 31, I finally felt like life was lining up the way it should. I thought I could balance both, my growing career and a growing belly. I wasn't asking for special treatment, just understanding. And at first, that's what I got. The congratulations were loud and cheerful. You're going to be an amazing mom, Madison. We'll cover you while you're out, no worries. But slowly, things changed. I was left off email threads I usually led. Meeting invites stopped appearing on my calendar. People began talking around me instead of with me. My team started reporting directly to the VP instead of coming to me. When I asked, I was told it was just temporary restructuring. My input, once valued, was now under review. I remember walking into my 5-month performance review, expecting the usual, maybe a conversation about how I detransition out before maternity leave. Instead, I got blindsided. You've been disengaged lately. Some team members have concerns. We're just not sure your heart's still in it. I stared at them. Was this a joke? I was still pulling late nights, still meeting every deadline, still carrying the team while carrying a baby. And this is how they responded? I felt the walls close in. Still, I stayed calm. I submitted my maternity leave plan early. I built out a clean transition, prepped documentation, trained my backup. I dotted every I and crossed every T. 7 months pregnant, swollen feet, aching back, I kept showing up. Until I didn't. Because one morning, a meeting invite popped up on my phone. A last-minute Zoom with HR and upper management. And that's when the real betrayal began. The Zoom meeting opened with those fake corporate smiles, you know, the ones. The HR manager, Melissa, looked like she had rehearsed her lines in the mirror 10 times before joining. Beside her sat Brandon, the VP of Operations, who suddenly couldn't make time for anything except this meeting. I had a sick feeling in my stomach before anyone even spoke. Melissa cleared her throat and smiled with that strained expression HR people use when they're about to ruin your life but want to sound supportive. Madison, she began, we've been reviewing department performance, and unfortunately, we've decided to move in a different direction. I blinked. I'm sorry, what? Brandon jumped in. This isn't about your pregnancy, I want to be clear on that. It's just that we've noticed some decline in productivity, and with the restructuring, that was the word they always used to fire people without saying the word fired. I stared at the screen frozen. Wait, I said, you're terminating me while I'm 7 months pregnant? Melissa's smile didn't even twitch. We understand this may come as a shock. You'll receive a severance package equivalent to 2 months of pay, and we'll cover your benefits until the end of the month. I felt my hands shaking under the desk. What about my maternity leave? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. What about the plan I submitted? The transition work I've already done? The extra hours I've put in? Brandon gave me that corporate shrug. This was a business decision. That's what they called it when they discarded someone like yesterday's lunch. I logged off the call in silence, sat at my kitchen table, staring at the wall for what felt like hours. My husband came home to find me like that, pale, lips trembling, the glow of pregnancy now replaced by a mix of rage and heartbreak. I had done everything right. I worked longer hours than most of the men in that office. I showed up even when my back screamed, even when my ankles were swollen and my sleep was broken. I was efficient, loyal, smart, and none of it mattered because I became inconvenient. That night, I curled into Josh's arms and sobbed like a child. I wasn't just grieving a job, I was grieving trust. The idea that hard work would protect me, that family meant something in corporate America. But something inside me hardened too. By the next morning, I was done crying. I called a lawyer. Turns out, firing someone while pregnant isn't just cruel, it's also a legal landmine. But Ferntech was clever. They didn't say because of pregnancy. They documented fake performance issues for months, just enough to cover their backs. I could have fought, sued, and maybe I would have won, but something told me I needed to think bigger. Instead of fighting for a job at a company that never truly valued me, I decided I would build something better, not just for myself but for every woman who'd ever been quietly erased because she chose to become a mother. It started small. I joined online forums for women in tech who'd been pushed out during pregnancy. I listened to their stories. So many of them echoed mine, same betrayal, same gaslighting, same humiliation. I wasn't alone. That gave me power. I took my severance and savings and poured it into planning, research, late-night brainstorm sessions with Josh over tea and chocolate chip cookies. I wasn't sure where it would lead, but I knew one thing. I was never going to beg to sit at someone else's table again. I'd build my own. The first few weeks after getting fired were strange. My body was still changing. My baby kicked like clockwork now, a daily reminder that something beautiful was on the horizon, even if everything else felt like it had fallen apart. I'd wake up at 6 a.m., out of habit, then realize I didn't have a job to rush to anymore. That should have felt like freedom. But in those early days, it felt more like a void, like my identity had been scooped out and replaced with shame. But slowly, very slowly, I stopped seeing myself as the victim of Ferntech's betrayal, and I started seeing myself as a woman on a mission. Josh encouraged me to take time to rest, but he also believed in my drive. You've always been the smartest person in the room, he told me one night while rubbing my swollen feet. So go build the room. I started journaling again, something I hadn't done since college. Every thought, every dream, every idea, I scribbled down like it was gold. I wasn't sure what kind of business I was building yet, but I knew what it wouldn't be. It wouldn't be a place that treated women like they had an expiration date the minute they got pregnant. I called up some old colleagues, women I had mentored, worked alongside, or even just shared coffee breaks with. Many had their own stories of being overlooked, dismissed, or quietly pushed aside once they became mothers. "You should do something with this," one of them said. "Build the company that never existed for us." And so I did. With a newborn in my arms and spit up on my shirt, I filed the LLC paperwork for Havencore, a tech consulting firm run by women for women. Our goal was to work with clients who actually respected work-life balance, who saw the value in flexible hours, remote collaboration, and diverse leadership. I worked during nap times, took Zoom calls with my baby in a sling, designed the company logo while nursing at AM. Was it hard? God, yes. But I had never felt so alive. Every time I felt imposter syndrome creep in, I remembered that I had once run entire projects at Ferntech while half the executive team was out golfing. I knew what I was doing. I just needed to trust myself again. I hired a small, remote team, 3 other women who had also been burned by corporate politics. One of them, Claire, had been laid off 2 days after announcing her pregnancy with twins. Another, Denise, had left a toxic office after her male boss told her that maybe management wasn't tea for moms. We weren't just building software, we were rebuilding our sense of worth. Our first big client came from a referral, a small healthcare startup looking for project management support. We knocked it out of the park. That led to another client, and another. Within a year, we had 6 full-time staff, 3 part-time contractors, and a waitlist of companies who actually wanted to partner with us, not control us. We didn't just grow, we bloomed. And all the while, my daughter, Lily, grew too healthy, happy, and surrounded by a mother who finally knew her own value. I wasn't just building a company, I was building a legacy. 2 years into running Havencore, I got an unexpected email. It was from a recruiter, apparently, Ferntech Solutions. Yes, that Ferntech was looking to outsource a major chunk of their project management to an outside consulting firm. I nearly laughed out loud. I reread the message 3 times, just to be sure it wasn't a prank. The irony was too delicious to ignore. The same company that had tossed me aside like I was disposable now needed help, my kind of help. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I did my homework. I reached out to some industry contacts, pieced together the backstory. Turns out Ferntech had suffered a string of setbacks. Their top 2 project leads had left to join competitors. They'd lost a big government contract due to late delivery. Morale was reportedly in the gutter, and apparently, they were being pressured by their biggest client to bring in outside help or risk losing even more business. They were desperate, so I wrote back, politely, professionally, "Hi, this is Madison from Havencore. I'd love to hear more about the opportunity." We set up a meeting for the following week. They didn't even realize it was me, the Madison they had fired because I'd changed my last name after getting married. I walked into that Zoom call wearing a crisp blazer, my company logo behind me, and the confidence of a woman who had rebuilt her world from ashes. The moment the camera turned on, I saw their faces. 2 executives I knew well: Paul, the director of operations who had signed off on my termination, and Lydia, my former manager who once told me to not take things so personally when I asked why I'd been excluded from meetings while pregnant. Their faces froze when they recognized me. "Madison?" Paul asked, visibly squinting at the screen. I smiled. "Yes, Madison King, founder and CEO of Havencore." There was a long pause, then a nervous chuckle. "Well, this is unexpected." "I imagine so," I said calmly. "But let's talk about your needs." I let them squirm for a few moments longer before diving into the business. I made them pitch me. I made them explain their pain points, their failed attempts to manage projects in-house, and why they now needed outside help. And then I told them my terms. High ones. I quoted a fee 30% above industry standard, required full autonomy over project timelines and staffing, and included a clause that allowed my team to walk away without penalty if there were any signs of toxic culture or gender bias. They hesitated, so I leaned in, voice calm but cutting. "I've built a company that values mothers, women, and work-life balance. If you want Havencore, you work on our terms. No exceptions." 2 days later, they signed the contract. I didn't celebrate right away. I waited until the onboarding was complete, the paperwork filed, and my team briefed. Then I bought a bottle of champagne and popped it open with Josh on our back porch. I cannot believe they actually signed, he laughed, raising his glass. Oh, I can, I said. They finally realized the value of what they threw away. Over the next 3 months, my team and I ran Ferntex projects with ruthless efficiency. But we didn't just execute, we elevated. Our reports were cleaner, our communication was sharper, our clients happier. Paul emailed me one day. You've done more in 6 weeks than our last team did in 6 months. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. My revenge wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, professional, and powerful. They had fired me for becoming a mother, and now, a mother was running their business better than they ever could. One morning, I got another email, this one from Ferntex CEO. He asked if I'd consider a more permanent partnership or even stepping in as a fractional COO. I laughed out loud. Not a chance. I forwarded it to my team with a simple note. This is why we built Haven Core, because revenge doesn't always have to be a fight. Sometimes, the sweetest payback is success they have no choice but to respect. It's been nearly a year since Haven Core took over Ferntex operations. Our contract with them eventually expired, and I chose not to renew it. Not because we couldn't, but because we didn't need them anymore. We'd grown. Bigger clients, international projects, a team of over 30 women, many of them moms working remotely, thriving, empowered. We had our own identity now. Built not in the shadow of a company that discarded me, but from the fire it lit in me. I think about that a lot, how life has a funny way of circling back, of putting people exactly where they're supposed to be even if the journey hurts like hell. I'll be honest, there were nights I cried quietly, feeding my newborn in the dark, wondering if I'd made a mistake walking away from a steady job, wondering if I'd ever be more than just the girl they let go. But what I've learned is this. Being let go wasn't the end. It was the push I needed to rise. And now, when I walk into our weekly team meetings, I don't just see employees, I see warriors. Women who were told they weren't enough. Women who were passed over, shut out, written off. And yet here they are, leading million-dollar accounts and mentoring the next generation with grace and steel. Do I still feel bitter sometimes? Maybe a little. There are still moments when I remember the sting of being looked at like I was too emotional or too distracted just because I chose to become a mother. But now that bitterness has transformed into drive to keep building, to keep empowering, to keep proving that success doesn't require sacrificing womanhood, motherhood, or humanity. Josh often tells me, you didn't just build a company, Mads. You built a movement, and maybe he's right. We get emails from women across the country now, moms who watched what we did with Ferntech and decided to quit their toxic jobs. Women starting their own ventures, creating job boards for moms, launching co-working spaces with childcare. It's a ripple effect. All because one company made the wrong call. You know what the best part is? My daughter, now 2.5, comes into my office sometimes during Zoom meetings, babbling in her little voice, clutching her stuffed bunny. No one tells me it's unprofessional. No one rolls their eyes. In fact, half the time, other team members' kids are waving at the screen too. Because we made space for that. We normalized it. We built a company around the idea that people are whole human beings with lives, families, and babies who don't care if you're on a deadline. That's what I'm proudest of, not the revenue, not the press features, not even the revenge, but the culture, a place where being a woman, a mom, a leader, and a human can coexist. So yeah, they fired me for taking maternity leave, and now I run the company that replaced them, but more importantly, I run it on my terms, and I wouldn't have it any other way.